Love is a crucial emotion that's prevalent through a commonplace way of life. When our passion for others starts to diminish, we begin to forget the emotions that formed the basis of a relationship in the first place. Anger and sadness shroud the space that compassion used to fill. Love for another may recede during these times, but to forget about the affection that the relationship brought removes the emotions that make us human. Now, Marriage Story is it's just one of the best movies of 2019, I think, and it's just such a way to wrap up the decade in terms of Netflix original, making it seen without having to, I guess, slowly trash. Marriage Story is written and directed by Noah Baumbach.
Noah Baumbach,
who also written and directed Frances Ha, which is a movie that I personally love. A lot of his directing styles are influenced by just very simple forms of storytelling in movies, and similarly to directors like Woody Allen. He's just the type of writer that always understands exactly what humans say and how they say things in a realistic manner. He can throw in things like tangents. People will just add in little ums and ahs, but it would feel natural and it wouldn't feel like it would be forced. With Baumbach's new movie, he's telling a story about love. The movie is about love, but the plot itself is about a divorce, and that juxtaposition is evident throughout the entire movie. It's amazing how many emotions are filled throughout the entire movie. You're filled with so much sadness, but also so much happiness, and the comedy juxtaposes in a way that doesn't feel like it's taken away the drama. And not many directors can do that, because often you have something like, oh, we need a sad scene, but we need another character to throw off a witty line, and it just ruins the tension completely. The movie does a lot of things that, if another movie were to do it, it could come across as cheap or lazy, like the way it introduces a character. The movie starts with an introduction of these two characters describing what they like about each other. A bad movie would have the main character saying, "My name is Jason Bourne." I am discount Matt Damon. The way it introduces these character elements is by having these two characters discuss what they love about the other person in a marriage counseling scene. And that scene is just so heartwarming and passionate, and you can't dislike the characters that they're presenting, not because that they're so... These people feel like real people. They're not just saying, oh, I like their nose, I like their eyes. They're quite literally saying, I like the way that they laugh about things that they're insecure about, for example, or the way that Charlie cries in movies. It's so genuine and so real, and not many movies capture that realness. A good example of how Baumbach captures dialogue well is with the young boy, the kid, because often the kids are just bratty shits. They are unreasonable, and though there are elements of that in this movie, it's not to a point where you don't understand why they're acting that way. The kid in this movie is acting this way because he doesn't want his parents to break up, but he clearly likes one more than the other at points. When that's that being said, the boy in the movie says that he's 8, but he looks like he's about 10, but... So throughout the entire movie, there's a huge focus on the writing and dialogue between the two characters. There's not much going on in terms of cinematography or in terms of lighting, but what it does to make up for that is to make it so grounded and to keep it simple. It's not going to have these sweeping shots of the Golden Gate Bridge. It's not going to have these intense camera angles, these intense movements, because it just wants you to focus on these two characters. A lot of this alludes to the point that it's trying to make it feel like a a home video in a sense, and the fact that it was shot on film and you can see the grainy textures and the way that the sunlight just pops off of the characters. Just feels like a Sunday movie you would find with your family after a while of like just forgetting that the tapes existed, and a lot of it again adds to that whole reality. The focus on the sets as well allows the characters to walk in and out. The camera never follows a character through the doorways or through another room. Keep the camera here, the character will walk off, and then they'll come back to this one room. And the reason for that is to further allude to Charlie's stage play. Adam Driver plays Charlie, who's a stage director, and Scarlett Johansson plays Nicole, who's an actor who happens to be in some of Charlie's plays. The plot focuses on these two characters just trying to find that spark, that love that they used to have, and they just want to hold on to, but they just can't. And it's just so beautiful but sad, and there's always that little bit of hope that you hold on to throughout the entire movie, and it's not many movies capture that. There's a lot of scenes where the parents will be bickering between each other, and the camera would just be angled low enough to make it feel like you are the child in the middle of the relationship, and it just adds so much tension because you know that there are elements that these two have, that they truly do love each other. They want to stay together, but they just can't seem to work out their differences. What also works well is the fact that none of the characters are vilified, that none of the characters are seen as this one's inherently good or this one's inherently evil. So there'd be moments where you think, oh my god, that person's a dickhead, how dare they dare they do this? But then you find out some more information, you're like, oh, how dare you do that? And then again, you feel like a child. A lot of the comedic relief is natural as well in this movie. One thing that Baumbach does really well is that he captures this comedic offset between characters. Often there'd be a character who'd be the comedic relief. The comedic relief flies naturally, and a lot of it comes through things like awkward situations that you would joke about in the past. And what makes that so is the fact that Scarlett Johansson and Noah Baumbach both had to deal with divorces before making this movie, and also Adam Driver's parents were in a divorce when he was growing up. With these three people, they all added to the script in some ways, and you can tell because there would be moments where it'd be like you're talking to a friend about the past, and you even though it would have been so stressful or you would have been so sad about the event, there would be moments that make you go, okay, you know how I do this or something similar, and you joke about it, and the comedy flies in that. It's not distracting. It's not like they want you to feel sad about this one thing and then they throw in a sense of pathos to just make the comedy seem irrelevant or just out of place. It just flows naturally. I'm making this movie sound very depressing for the most part, but there's so much about it that's just really funny and charming, and it just captures life so well, and how people just talk and gather and communicate, and I've gone so long now without discussing the actors' performances because everyone did just such a great job. It's not in the sense that they were able to show happiness or sadness or anger. It's just the fact that they were able to flow naturally. The dialogue was so natural in the sense that people would interrupt each other. They would go on tangents. They'd throw in ums and ahs. They would constantly jump off of each other. The characters felt like they were actually there. You don't want to watch a movie where you're waiting for the character to say their line. While watching this movie, you feel like you're watching these characters talk as real people. They're talking and they're responding to each other. They're not waiting for the lines to be said to them for them to then respond. It's weird because I come to the point where I see Adam Driver so long and I think, oh, he's the emo space wizard. Or you see Scarlett Johansson and you're like, oh, she's the Black Widow. But there was never any point in the movie where I saw them as those characters. I always saw them as Charlie and Nicole. And a lot of that comes from the fact that you're given so many monologues from them where they're just discussing their problems or why they're feeling the way that they are, and it feels so natural. The actors even capture the proper way to handle a breakdown, because a lot of the time there'd be a breakdown in the sense that, oh, they're in the car, they slam the car, and they say, yep, this boy's a breakdown. And there's never that over hyperbolic reaction. It's always just so natural. You have that one scene where Nicole's just asked, what's wrong? And she just smiles like, yeah, everything's fine. But then as soon as she said that, you can see, when everyone says that everything's fine, but they're not fine, that's...
You just can't get into it because they would never understand.
Whenever there's an overreaction, it's treated as an overreaction. What really sets the movie's tone is Randy Newman's score. A lot of it just feels very 1950s nuclear family, where the violins and piano just work off of each other. The cello is just very solemn, but it's there. There's a presence, but it tries to bring a sense of warmth and happiness. And the warmth and happiness just adds to the heartbreak, because you can see those elements, those sparks, where you're like, yes,
there's a chance.
The movie's just, it's not heartbreaking in the sense that everyone dies or anything like that. It's heartbreaking because it's relatable in the sense that everyone has a relationship that they've had in the past that they know that they could have held on to if they didn't do stupid things, or if they listened to the other person more, or if they just accepted certain elements. What it does so well is just it captures that human lifestyle. To sum it up, the movie just captures love and compassion for another person in such a truthful and down-to-earth way. If I were to give it a rating, it would be a high 9 out of 10. Also, there was a huge metaphor where everyone in the family was playing Monopoly, and then everyone goes bankrupt, and it's a metaphor for how capitalism is evil and must be abolished. So I'm happy with that.